Welcome back, everybody. This is the Horn Takes podcast. You're very rough around the edges. Texas sports talk destination. I got a little caught up in the music there. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. Folks, it's another college football weekend. It's another stop on the Big 12 Fuck You Tour for the Texas Longhorns. This time on the tour, Texas aims to crush those Cockroaches from Fort Worth. It's Prediction Friday. Folks, I love Fridays for so many reasons. No work after today. For me, anyway. It's a Team-Am, Tex-Mex, and Margaritas day. Got college football tomorrow. It means I get to spend the weekend out on the patio with the fire going. You guys join us tomorrow. We'll do some TikToks tomorrow for sure. From the patio, with the patio fires, with lots of drunk Sean. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. I know today is not technically Veterans Day, but I won't be doing a show tomorrow. So I wanted to give a shout out to all the veterans that may be listening to the show. Thank you for your service, guys. We'll do Trace Otra games week 11 this week. We'll have 4 keys and a prediction for this TCU game. And then we'll have some other random college football thoughts. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. That's the website for the podcast, or you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all the main podcast places. You can search Horn Takes Podcast and find us there. Trace Otra games week 11, 20-10 on the season. We shoot for 3-0 for 4 straight weeks. We've gone 3 straight weeks with 3-0 records. And guys, I'm not picking like punk games. I'm not picking easy games. These are like ranked games. These are like big time games we're talking about here. Let's get into this week's, see what we got. We got number 3 Michigan at number 10 Penn State. This one kicks at 11 a.m. on Fox. Michigan a 4-point favorite in this game. At least they were at the time of this writing. For Michigan, they finally have to play a team. Like, Michigan has really had an easy schedule so far this season. They finally get to play a team with a pulse, and they have to do it on the road. Both of these teams are 1-2 in total defense, 1-3 in scoring defense, 1-8 in rushing defense, 1-13 in passing defense. I think this game might be defensive, folks. The line's -4. There may not even be 4 points scored in this game. That's how good these two defenses are, right? These two offenses are ranked 5th and 6th in the country in scoring offense, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. Penn State's got another shot, y'all, to prove themselves worthy of being in any kind of playoff discussion. They're a 1-loss team. They're kind of sitting on the outside looking in, at least from a 1-loss team perspective. Had a rough game against Ohio State. But they got a chance. They beat Michigan. And now maybe Penn State hops up to the top of that 1-loss team group. I don't know. Be hard to keep them out of that number 1 spot. Both of these defenses are obviously good. I don't think either offense is really that great, despite the gaudy sort of scoring numbers that both of these teams put up. I think a lot of their scoring is coming off the back of their defenses and their special teams. I think this was very much going to be a defensive type game. In a defensive type game, give me the experienced guy. Give me junior quarterback J.J. McCarthy over sophomore Drew Allar. Drew Allar looked really bad against Ohio State. I'm talking like, I don't know what his numbers were, but just watching that game, He just never looked comfortable. He was very inaccurate. I expect the Michigan defense to be able to do at least what the Ohio State defense was able to do in that game. J.J. McCarthy's been in the playoffs. He's played in, I think, 2 Ohio State games to this point. Give me that guy over the guy that just looked like ass against Ohio State. I think the home field will keep it close for Penn State, but I think Michigan wins this game 24-17. Next game up, number 13, Tennessee at number 14, Missouri. 2:30 p.m. kick on CBS. Tennessee -2 in this game. 2-point favorite for the Rocky Top. I got to be honest. I picked this game because how do you not pick a game between the 13th and 14th ranked teams? What I do, folks, is I just go down the list. I start looking at all the games for the week. And I start looking for numbers next to the teams' names. So anytime you see 2 numbers this close next to the team's names, and you're the type of dude that wants to pick games every week, I think you got to pick this type of game. So I picked it. Tennessee 7-2 has beaten absolutely nobody that's good. Missouri 7-2 with a win, I guess, over a Kansas State team that's pretty good, and a really close road loss to Georgia. I think you look at this game on paper, look at these 2 teams, pretty even matchup. I mean, I don't think, they're both kind of good offensively. They're both kind of good defensively. Missouri's got the home field advantage, but man, how empty are their emotional and physical tanks after going and playing between the hedges against the top-ranked Georgia team, playing a pretty solid game, giving Georgia all they wanted? Are they going to be able to come back in a week's time, get those tanks refilled, and be able to show up emotionally and physically for this game on Saturday? Again, I think this is one of those games where the home field keeps it close for Tennessee or for Missouri. But I think Tennessee's going to end up winning this game, kind of in like a shootout type deal, 33-30. I got Tennessee over Missouri. Number 9, Ole Miss at number 2, Georgia, 6 p.m. on ESPN. Georgia's a 10.5-point favorite. First glance, I was like, man, that's a lot. That's a lot over a number 9 team in the country. But then you go look at Georgia, man, and they've just been kind of quietly racking up a 26-game winning streak. Ole Miss was not competitive, really, in their only opportunity to go on the road against the top 10 team when they went to Tuscaloosa earlier this season. Despite the fact that score wasn't all that terrible in favor of Alabama, Ole Miss was really never in that game. I think if you got to pick a weakness on this Georgia team, which there aren't a lot, it's the offense, and it's just because it's inexperienced at quarterback. Statistically, very good Georgia team. So I think, Ole Miss kind of has a puncher's chance. Anytime you're a team that's offensive like Ole Miss is, and the other team maybe has some questions offensively, maybe has some inexperience issues offensively, I think you got a puncher's chance. It's not very likely. I think playing this game between the hedges, and Georgia's just obviously superior rosters, is just going to be too much for Ole Miss. I like Georgia to start being impressive at the right time. Nobody's really been talking about Georgia. They've just been kind of playing, winning. It just hasn't been all that impressive. It certainly hasn't been as impressive as last year's run for Georgia. But I think we're fixing to start seeing Georgia start being impressive at the right time as we're headed down the stretch, as they're headed to that SEC championship game. I think Georgia wins this one 38-23. Maybe a late score for Ole Miss makes it closer than it should have been, makes it seem closer than it really was. 4 keys and a prediction for the TCU game. Key number 1, win the line of scrimmage. And I know that sounds just so cliche, but it's not. Texas, this is an area where Texas clearly has an edge personnel wise. This should be a no-brainer that Texas is going to walk into the, I forgot the name of this, Amon G. Carter Stadium. Maybe I just made that up. I think there's an Amon in there. They're going to walk into Fort Worth. They should just walk into Fort Worth, walk onto the TCU playing surface, and personnel-wise, they should just run right over the top of this TCU team. I think part of protecting the line of scrimmage or winning the line of scrimmage means you protect Quinn Ewers. I mean, you want to protect whoever the quarterback is, obviously. But I think with a quarterback coming off an injury and the type of injury that Quinn Ewers had and the type of injury he's trying to come back from, you want to make sure you don't get him beat up in the passing game. And a really good way to make sure he doesn't get beat up in the passing game is to be really great in the running game. We don't want Quinn Ewers to have to drop back in this game 40-something times and try to win the game with his arm. And that's any quarterback. You don't want any – this isn't a Quinn Ewers thing. Quinn Ewers just happens to be the Texas quarterback that's going to start on Saturday. This is a just how you want to play football thing. You don't want your quarterback who suffered that type of a shoulder injury on his throwing arm to have to come in and whip the ball all over the park to try to win you a game. So I think it'll be really important for this Texas offensive line to dominate, a lot like they dominated against K-State. You look at that K-State game, Malik Murphy never got touched in that game. And they had two guys that, and I'll just say they were 100-yard rushers. I don't remember. I think Baxter was 5-6 yards short of 100. Basically, they had two guys go over 100 yards on the ground in that game. So to me, there's no reason at all why Texas can't go do that against TCU this weekend. I think you flip it around to the defensive side of the line of scrimmage. You want to stop the run. You want to affect the TCU passer. TCU's the second best passing team in the Big 12. They're the 16th best passing team in the country. And they're doing that with a redshirt freshman. Don't think Chandler Morris is going to play. Haven't seen anything about Chandler Morris playing. So you think if you can get back there, get in his face a little bit, affect him a little bit, he'll make some mistakes. TCU is actually a pretty good running team as well. They're a pretty good offensive team. So I think it's an interesting matchup when you talk about the line of scrimmage. Then it's going to be an interesting matchup between their offensive line, Texas's defensive line. Key number 2 in this game, you want to win the turnover battle. And again, I know that sounds really, really cliche, but TCU has a -6 turnover margin. Texas has a +3, which isn't amazing, but it's better than -6. So I think if you're Texas, you absolutely do not want to go up there on the road in a hostile environment and start turning the ball over. Because if you do that, you're giving away any advantage you have in that area to the other team. Not to mention the fact that, again, you're on the road. Turnovers on the road are way worse than turnovers at home. Turnovers at home, the place goes quiet, which is okay. Turnover on the road, the place goes absolutely fucking nuts, and you can just start feeling all this energy building up against you. And it's tough to overcome. And this might have been the most important key of this game. Just make sure you protect the ball. Let's keep it clean. We haven't done that in a couple of weeks. We have not had a clean game in a couple of weeks. And I know we were playing a backup quarterback that just didn't have a lot of experience, but nothing says the backup quarterback's got to turn the ball over. So winning that turnover battle, huge in this game. Key number 3 for the Texas Longhorns is they head up to Fort Worth this weekend to play the TCU Horned Frogs. They got to stay the storm. We've been talking all season kind of about being the storm in these big games or these road games. You go into a hostile place, there's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be a lot of excitement. Place is going to be hopping. You go to those types of places, you got to do something to quiet the crowd quickly. And the way you can do that is you can go be the chaos. You cannot let all that energy they got going affect you. You can just go do your thing and shut them the hell up. Same thing in big games, whether it's at home or on the road. You want to be able to, or even a neutral site, you want to be the first team to make something chaotic happen. I look back to that Red River shootout. 2 plays into the game, Quinn Ewers, really ill-advised pass, turns the ball over, and the Texas half of that stadium just went to bed. So we were just like in shock. OU goes on in a few plays, punches it in the end zone, and all of a sudden they're up 7-0 in a big-time game. So the game is 60 minutes, but you can certainly do things that make it tough on you really quick in football games. So I think it's important to go into these types of games very focused, very physical, and make something big happen on the road. And that's being the storm. So I think most of this season, Texas has done a pretty good job of being consistent and controlling games early on. What they haven't been able to do so far this season against lesser opponents is stay that way. Keep that momentum going. Keep the gas pedal down. All gas, no brakes, right? Well, we just have not seen this Texas team be able to do that against a lesser opponent. So we're talking road game, Ignite, against a fan base that hates Texas, would love nothing more than to beat Texas on their way out. And against a team that's owned Texas since joining the Big 12 in 2012. Texas is not going to be able to just show up and win this game. They're going to have to show up, create some chaos early, and continue to be the storm for 4 quarters to win this game. Key number 4, be right on the back end. This Texas pass defense has been pretty bad for 2 of the last 3 weeks. Almost all of the bad, teams just kind of don't go right down the field on them. Teams don't get the ball at the 25 and just kind of dink and dunk it all the way down the field and get in the end zone against Texas. A lot of these pass plays and a lot of the trouble they've had has been off of big plays and breakdowns in coverage. So there's been a few occasions where in one-on-one coverage, guys have gotten big plays. They beat Texas DBs, or quarterbacks have made really good throws, threw their guys open on deep routes. But most of it's been just blown coverages. Just guys not being where they're supposed to be. I think you could say it cost them the game against Oklahoma. I think you could say it allowed, well, I won't even say I think you could say it absolutely allowed both Houston and K-State to get back in their games against Texas. And folks, Texas had commanding leads in both of those games. They're still like, Texas is finding ways to win these games, but there's still like that lingering shit that's been here since Sark's first year. Where the team just does not know how to act with a big lead. They just cannot crush somebody's throat. And I think you keep playing with that type of fire. You keep letting teams be in the game. I mean, they won that game against Kansas State by the hair of their chinny chin chin. I mean, it does not get much more. It does not get much more close than that, folks. Ball on the 6-yard line, 4 plays to go. 4 chances to get it in the end zone. And yeah, man, the defense stepped up huge. And probably last year, definitely 2 years ago, Texas gives that game away. Texas lays down at that point, and Kansas State wins that game. So thank God they've got that sort of, oh shit, we got to do something mentality, and they've got the ability to do it. But why not just take that 17-point lead you had and just turn it into a 34-point lead and not have to worry about that shit? So looking back, at the defense and the passing game, I think the only thing that's I think there's 2 things that are unelite about this defense, but the glaring area where we are unelite is on the back end, and mostly in the safety realm. And really only when they start playing this soft zone coverage is when it really comes up. I think they're going to have to fix that against TCU, because again, we said it, TCU's ranked number 2 in the Big 12 in passing offense and 16th nationally, so they can sling it. They're not afraid to sling it. They're going to sling it. Maybe that's what Texas needs. Maybe Texas needs a challenge. I don't know. They took the challenge from K-State on the run game and just absolutely, it just destroyed Kansas State's run game. Maybe they need to hear, you can't stop the pass against TCU, and they're going to do the same thing to their passing game. We'll find out. Prediction time. Obviously, getting Quinn Ewers back is huge for Texas. And it's a big if, I'm still not 100% sold on this, if he's 100%. And the reason I'm not sold is we heard Steve Sarkisian. We've heard reports out of practice that say Quinn Ewers took himself out of practice Tuesday, I think, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. He didn't finish. No, maybe that means nothing. Maybe that was just an observer saying, yeah, Quinn didn't finish practice. But maybe it was just, maybe it had nothing to do with his injury. But here's the thing, folks. Any kind of pain or any kind of discomfort in a throwing shoulder could be like an absolute disaster during a game. A small miscalculation at the point of attack becomes a big miss downrange. If you're shooting, if you're familiar with shooting rifles, the slightest little bit you're off right there at the shooting bench turns into inches and feet downrange at the target. So for a quarterback, just a slight little bit of pain that causes, him not to follow through the right way or him to change his arm motion, the slightest bit of discomfort that can affect his motion and his timing could be a big thing down the field. So what I'm looking for early, out of Quinn Ewers is does he look comfortable? Or is he accurate? Is the ball coming out with any kind of zip? Does he look like Quinn Ewers? I think the Texas running game is going to go off in this game. I think you're about to see. Sark not necessarily lean on it. I mean, we're still going to pass. We're probably still going to pass on the first play of the game. But I think you're going to see this running game really put up some numbers and control this game and kind of quiet this home crowd down a little bit. And I think you'll see Ewers hit some passes over the top, maybe get some big plays for touchdowns that way. I feel like the defense is finally going to play a complete game. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. The Horn Takes podcast score predictor, which, folks, is a formula I created, but it's a formula on its own. And it's been pretty close. It's also been off. So we've had this predictor finish for 2 games. It predicted a BYU score that I was like, what? There ain't no damn way. And it was much closer to the final score. And it was really close, actually, to the final score of that game than I was. And so I rolled with it this last weekend for K-State. and it was off. It shouldn't have been, though. Malik Murphy doesn't throw the ball away a bunch, and the Horn Takes podcast score predictor was real close again. But the Horn Takes podcast score predictor says Texas wins this game on the road at TCU in the final game against TCU, more than likely 34-15. So there it is, folks. Texas is going to go on the road. They're going to beat TCU 34-15 on Saturday night. A few random college football thoughts. I'm sure if any of you guys are on Twitter or the internet, probably Instagram, you've probably heard this audio of Lane Kiffin talking to one of his players where he kicks this kid off the team. And I think it kind of got, I haven't seen a whole lot of commentary on it, but I think it kind of got thrown out there as a ooh, look how big of a shitbag Lane Kiffin is type of deal. And so I listened to it. And it's really hard to tell a lot of context. It's like the videos you see of something happen, some sort of shooting thing between police and a suspect, or just anything you can think of where you see these little snippets and everybody jumps to a conclusion, and then it comes out that there's more information, there's more video, and the whole thing changes. It's one of those type of deals. Real short, maybe 25-second audio clip of Lane Kiffin talking to this kid. I assume he's recording it on his cell phone. I don't know. Based off of what I heard, I think a couple things. One, I don't think Lane Kiffin was wrong to kick that kid off the team, because in the context of the conversation they were having, this kid just decided not to show up to anything for like a few weeks. Regardless of the reason why, we all have a responsibility to inform people where we're at. Like if I don't go to work, if I don't want to go to work, I'm not just going to take off work for 2 weeks and not tell anybody, regardless of why. And if I do, I should expect to get fired. And that's essentially what happened to this kid. Kid claims he had some mental stuff. He needed a mental break from the team, which I can understand that. When I was a freshman in high school, I took me a mental break for about 2 weeks from freshman football. Thank God the coaches took me back. Thank God I made it through all the bullshit they made me do so I could come back on the team and play. I took my lumps on that one, and I didn't get to play for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. But I sure did get to run my ass off after practice every day for 3 or 4 weeks. So I get it, man. You get tired. When you get tired, your brain don't work. Who knows what this kid's got going on? Point being, you can't just leave. And the coach reached out. The coaching staff reached out. Someone reached out and said, hey, Coach Kiffin wants to talk to you. You need to come talk to Coach Kiffin. The kid just didn't do it. So he gets kicked off the team. Now, the one thing I do think about this situation, again, just based on the context, I think Lane Kiffin could have been way less of a dick about it. I think Lane Kiffin could have been more compassionate about where this kid was in his mental state and cared a little bit more about that than the fact that he had to kick a kid off the team, which I'm sure he's upset about. Like, I don't think these guys want to kick kids off the team. I don't think these guys want these kids to do these things that put them in bad situations. But on the other hand, they can't just allow bad behavior to go forward. Like, they have to do something about it. You have to hold people accountable. It's like at work. I don't want to have to fire people, but I've had to sometimes, and it sucks. But you got to hold people accountable, or else the team concept does not work. But I think he could have said, man, we're not going to, you're not going to be on the team for the rest of this season, but I'm going to do whatever I can to help you get the help you need. And more or less, he just kicked him out of his office and told him he's off the team, and then made sure he understood that they have every right to kick him off the team. So I'm kind of polarized on this one. I don't think he was wrong for saying you're not on the team anymore, but I think he should have. And maybe he did. Again, we don't have all the context. Maybe that was the very next sentence out of his mouth. What can I do to help you, get better? I don't know. Much ado about nothing is the point. I just figured I should weigh in on it because I saw some other people weigh in on it. Some other really important college football people like myself. Is the defense in the Big Ten really that good? I spend a lot of time going through statistics, and I got all these formulas going that help me out with certain things. And I do a deep dive every Thursday on Texas's next upcoming opponent, and that's all it's about is statistics. It's statistical breakdown of each team, kind of what we think that means. And what I noticed this week, and I've noticed it before, but what I really noticed this week was just how gaudy some of these Big Ten defensive numbers look. Listen to this stuff, folks. The top 4 teams in scoring defense are from the Big Ten. 3 of the top 5 teams in total defense are from the Big Ten. So you look at that and you go, hell yeah. Hell yeah, the Big Ten defense is good. And guys, I watched Penn State and Ohio State go at it, and I haven't seen a game like that defensively in a really long time. I mean, these two defenses looked good in that game. Like dominant. But then you start looking at these offensive statistics from these teams. Check this out. Total offense, you have to go all the way down to 42nd on the list before you find a Big Ten team. So the best Big Ten team in total offense is the 42nd best team in total offense in the country. And they've only got 5 teams in the top 75 teams in total offense. I'm a huge believer in 2 things can be true at the same time, but I'm not so sure that this Big Ten defense's dominant stuff doesn't just have a lot to do with the Big Ten offenses just not being that good. And again, I know you look at how many points some of these teams score. Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State all have pretty good points per game numbers. I just think a lot of that has to do with just how bad the other team's offenses are and how their defense capitalizes on it. But that doesn't make them like a really dominant defense. It's kind of like the old discussion in the Big 12 and even way back in the day, Pac-12. Everybody used to bag on the defenses in those 2 conferences because the offenses were just pretty damn amazing. And so to me, that kind of brings me back to the 2 things can be true at one time. I do think those defenses are good, but I also think the offenses are not good. I think you're going to see these Big Ten teams, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, if they can get themselves back in the mix down the stretch, you're going to see these teams have some amazing defensive performances, right? And then whichever ones of them I didn't even think you get into bowl season, whether they're in the playoff or not, it's going to look a whole lot different. Because a lot of those defensive numbers are just because the offenses in the Big Ten are just not good. Horn take right there. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. We're going to have a good time watching football all day tomorrow on the patio. We got the fire going. We will have the fire going. We'll have the drinks flowing. Making chili tomorrow because it's going to be real cold. So we'll do some TikToks tomorrow during the games. Join us Monday for Exaggeration Monday, where Drunk Sean will just pour it all out about this TCU game. Hopefully it's all good stuff. We'll also do a little bit around the Big 12. We're starting to get down to the end of the season. The picture of who's going to play in the Big 12 championship might start getting a lot more clear this weekend. We'll do some random college sports thoughts, college football thoughts. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us at Horn Takes Podcast. We're on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow us and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. It won't cost you guys a thing. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. Let's go Longhorns. Let's beat those cockroaches one last time. You guys get hooked.